Sadie Rice, a former royal maid, who is now 35, has finally broken her silence on Prince William, and what she's revealed is shockingly bad. The woman who once walked the hallowed halls of the Cambridge residence has stepped forward with a story that's causing a lot of talk in the royal family. After 2 years of serving the future king and his family, this experienced royal servant has exposed the demanding reality behind palace doors. What pushed this loyal professional to leave one of Britain's most prestigious positions? The answer reveals a side of royal life the palace would prefer to keep private. Behind palace doors. Anmer Hall, located in the quiet English countryside, is known as a private and peaceful home for Prince William and Duchess Catherine. With 10 bedrooms and large gardens, it's the perfect retreat from the public eye. But behind the elegant walls of this royal home, something very different was happening. Something that stayed secret until a former royal maid, now 35 years old, decided she had to speak out. Sadie Rice worked at Anmer Hall for 2 years. She quietly cleaned the grand rooms, polished silverware used by royalty, cooked special meals, and kept the home in perfect shape. From the outside, her yearly salary of £35,000 seemed fair for working with such a famous family. But as the saying goes, not all that glitters is gold, especially when what glitters is a royal household. Sadie wasn't just any household staff member. Before joining Prince William and Duchess Catherine's team, she had served in the royal households of Norway and had even worked for Queen Elizabeth herself. Her resume sparkled with royal connections, making her the perfect addition to the Cambridge household. Little did she know that this position would eventually lead her to make a decision that would shake the very foundation of her career. The truth about working for royalty isn't what fairy tales would have us believe. There are no magical helpers or easy fixes. Instead, there are constant demands, high expectations, and a job that slowly takes over your life. This difficult truth became too much for Sadie, and eventually, she had to walk away. The breaking point. Sadie's a hard worker, but the job's demands got too much, even for her, revealed an insider close to the royal household. This wasn't just about dusting a few extra rooms or washing a few more dishes. It was about losing all sense of personal space and time where work completely took over her life. The first signs appeared slowly. Extra hours here, additional responsibilities there. What began as occasional requests soon transformed into constant expectations. The workload at Anmer Hall was already substantial. Grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, and laundry for a 10-bedroom estate isn't light work by any measure. But then came the request for more time at Kensington Palace as the family prepared for their permanent move to London. They wanted her to spend more time at Kensington Palace, and her work was increasing all the time, continued the source. The request might sound simple enough, but it meant completely reshaping her life around the royal family's needs. More time at Kensington Palace meant less time for herself, her own needs, her relationships, and her life. For a while, Sadie tried to make it work. She adjusted her schedule, stretched her hours, and pushed herself beyond what most would consider reasonable. But there comes a point where even the most dedicated employee needs to draw a line. For Sadie Rice, that moment finally arrived after 2 years of service. She wasn't having a normal life outside work, the insider explained with a note of sympathy. This statement speaks volumes about what was happening behind closed doors. Not having a normal life is a simple phrase that contains countless missed birthday celebrations, canceled dates, postponed dreams, and abandoned personal time. Royal expectations. What exactly does a royal household demand from its staff? The question seems simple, but the truth is much more complicated and goes far beyond a typical employer-employee relationship. When you work for the royals, you don't just serve them. You surrender parts of your life to them. For Sadie, the job description never mentioned that her personal time would slowly disappear. It never stated that the boundaries between work hours and personal hours would blur until they became almost non-existent. It certainly never indicated that her entire existence would eventually orbit around the needs of Prince William and Duchess Catherine. The standard duties were challenging enough. Grocery shopping meant selecting the perfect ingredients for meals that would be served to future monarchs. Cooking requires knowledge of dietary preferences, potential allergies, and royal tastes. Cleaning wasn't just about maintaining hygiene, but preserving historical artifacts and valuable possessions. Laundry meant handling garments worth more than her monthly salary with perfect care. And all of this had to be done with an invisible touch, present enough to serve, absent enough not to intrude. Royal staff are expected to be ghosts in their own workplace, seen only when needed and forgotten when not. But the most difficult expectation wasn't listed anywhere. The expectation that her loyalty would extend beyond professional boundaries into personal sacrifice. That she would always say yes, always accommodate, and always put the royal family's needs before her own. It's worth noting that despite the demands placed on royal staff, certain perks come with the position. Being trusted by royalty opens doors in the future, and the prestige of having served in such households can lead to better opportunities down the road. But at what cost? That's the question Sadie found herself facing as the demands continued to increase. The decision. Every big life change starts with one clear moment, the moment you realize something has to change. For Sadie Rice, that moment came after 2 years of working for the royal family. Her job wasn't just taking up her time anymore, it was taking over her entire life. Sadie gave her notice, and it looks like nothing will change her mind, the insider revealed. It's their loss. These words hint at attempts to convince her to stay, offers perhaps made to retain her services. But some decisions transcend negotiation. Some choices aren't about salary or benefits, but about reclaiming what's been lost: time, freedom, and identity. Making such a decision couldn't have been easy. Walking away from Prince William and Duchess Catherine's employment meant leaving behind a prestigious position, one that many would covet. It meant stepping out of the royal world with all its glamour and historical significance. It meant starting over. Yet, despite all this, Sadie stood firm. Her resignation wasn't submitted in a moment of anger or frustration. It was the result of careful consideration, weighing what she was gaining against what she was losing. And in that balance, her personal life finally took precedence. They will regret losing Sadie, as the right people aren't easy to find, the source added, highlighting just how valuable she had been to the royal household. This wasn't just flattery. It was recognition of a truth known within royal circles: finding staff who combine competence with discretion, who understand the delicate balance of serving royalty while maintaining appropriate boundaries, is extraordinarily difficult. According to reports, Prince George and Princess Charlotte were sad about her leaving. Children notice and remember the adults who treat them with care and kindness. The fact that Sadie made such a strong impression on them shows not just how good she was at her job, but also the kind of person she is. Life in service. What does it really mean to serve royalty? From the outside, we imagine a world of glamour and privilege, of brushing shoulders with the elite and witnessing history in the making. The reality, as Sadie discovered, is far more complex and demanding. A typical day in Sadie's life begins before the royal family awoke and ends long after they retire. Her mornings might start with preparing breakfast, ensuring the kitchen was stocked with fresh ingredients, and planning meals for the day. Then came the cleaning. Not the quick once-over that most of us give our homes, but the meticulous attention to detail that royal residences require. Laundry wasn't simply tossing clothes into a washing machine. It involved careful sorting, specific temperature settings for different fabrics, and proper hanging and pressing of garments worth thousands of pounds. Grocery shopping meant selecting only the finest produce, the freshest meats, and the most perfect ingredients, all while maintaining absolute discretion about the royal family's preferences and habits. Between these tasks came the unexpected requests, the last-minute changes, and the special preparations for guests or events. Each demand required immediate attention, regardless of whatever task she might already have been doing. All of this had to be done with perfect composure, never showing stress or fatigue, never allowing personal problems to affect her work. The royal family didn't just employ Sadie's skills. They employed her emotional labor as well, her ability to remain calm, pleasant, and efficient, regardless of circumstance. "I need to make this public," Sadie reportedly told a close friend after leaving her position. "People need to understand what it's really like." Her words reveal a desire not for revenge or attention, but for honesty about an institution often shrouded in mystery and glamour. The physical demands of the job were matched only by the psychological ones. Maintaining confidentiality meant carrying the weight of royal secrets without relief. Discretion required constant vigilance about what she said and to whom. Loyalty demanded putting the royal family's needs before her own. The invisible balancing act. The royal household runs like a perfectly tuned machine, steady, exact, and powered by countless unseen efforts. What many don't realize is that staff like Sadie don't just manage household tasks, they manage emotions, impressions, and the delicate boundaries between personal loyalty and self-preservation. "There were days when the Duchess would apologize for adding another task to my list," Sadie reportedly told a colleague after her departure. She knew it was too much, but the demands of their position meant they needed it done regardless. This rare glimpse into the relationship reveals something important. Awareness doesn't always translate to change. For every public appearance the Cambridges made, staff like Sadie worked double time behind the scenes. A simple garden party required days of preparation. A charity event meant reorganizing entire schedules. Last-minute travel or official events turned the household into a whirlwind of reorganization, and the staff were expected to carry it all out flawlessly. The most challenging aspect wasn't the physical workload, but the emotional labor. Staff had to manage not only logistics, but also the royals' moods and concerns. When Prince William faced pressure from senior royals, that tension trickled down. When Duchess Catherine worried about the children's privacy, those concerns became priorities that reshaped the staff's daily routines. Former royal household employee Marion Crawford once wrote, "In service to the crown, you learn to read rooms before entering them." This sixth sense, this ability to anticipate needs before they're voiced, is what made Sadie exceptional. It's also what made the job unsustainable. One particularly revealing incident occurred during preparations for a state dinner. Within just hours of guests arriving, Prince William requested a last-minute change to seating arrangements. While the request itself was reasonable, it triggered a chain of reactions that affected everything from place settings to security protocols. The staff, Sadie included, accomplished the impossible without complaint. But at what personal cost? "You're always calculating," shared another former palace employee who worked alongside Sadie. "Can I take this weekend to visit my sister? Will that clash with their schedule? If I ask for time off now, will it seem disloyal when they need me most?" These constant mental calculations create an invisible burden that weighs heavier than any physical task. What makes Sadie's story particularly poignant is that by all accounts, Prince William and Duchess Catherine were kind employers who never intentionally overworked their staff. The problem wasn't malice, but a system designed around absolute availability. A system that treats human needs as secondary to royal requirements. When Sadie finally drew her line in the sand at age 35, she wasn't just addressing her own situation. She was highlighting a fundamental question that royal households have yet to fully answer. How can centuries-old traditions of service adapt to modern understandings of work-life balance without compromising the function of monarchy itself? The royal response. When news of Sadie's resignation broke, Kensington Palace maintained its characteristic silence on matters concerning staff. "We cannot comment on the Duke and Duchess's private staff," said a spokesperson when approached by the press. This standard response reveals much about how the royal family views such matters, as private concerns rather than public interest. Behind the scenes, however, the reaction was likely quite different. Losing a trusted member of staff isn't just a staffing issue, it's a disruption to the carefully structured royal residence. Replacements must be vetted, security clearances obtained, training provided. New staff must learn the specific preferences and routines of the family they serve, knowledge that takes months to acquire and years to perfect. For Prince William and Duchess Catherine, Sadie's departure came at a particularly inconvenient time as they prepared for their permanent move to Kensington Palace. Having a household staff familiar with family routines and preferences is invaluable during such transitions. Losing Sadie meant losing not just her skills, but her institutional knowledge, her understanding of how the Cambridge household functions. This wasn't the couple's first staffing change in 2023. Rebecca Deacon, who had served as Duchess Catherine's private secretary for 5 years, had stepped down just months earlier. Two significant departures in such close succession suggest something brewing beneath the surface of royal employment, perhaps a reevaluation of work-life balance or changing expectations as the Cambridge family's role continues to evolve. While the palace may not have commented publicly, the loss was surely felt. Trusted staff are the backbone of royal operations, the invisible hands that allow public figures to perform their duties seamlessly. Their value often becomes most apparent only in their absence. The industry secret. Sadie's story isn't just about one housekeeper's experience with one royal couple. It offers a rare glimpse into the deeper, often unspoken reality of serving the elite. Her resignation highlights a broader imbalance, the uneven power dynamic that exists in high-profile households, where loyalty is expected and boundaries are blurred. Former royal butler Grant Harold, who worked for several royal family members over the years, offered a different perspective when interviewed. "It is the protocol to be guarded and formal, but they are wonderful and such a great sense of humor," he shared. "Off duty, they are so friendly." This contrast adds complexity to the narrative. It suggests that Prince William and Duchess Catherine may well be kind employers on a personal level, while the system they exist within creates impossible demands for staff. The difference between Harold's and Sadie's experiences points to an important truth. Working for royalty is not a uniform experience. Different positions carry different burdens. A butler might attend formal events, manage other staff, and interact more directly with the royal family. A housekeeper like Sadie handles the behind-the-scenes labor that makes royal life possible, often with less recognition and more physical demands. It also highlights the evolution of royal expectations over time. As younger royals like William and Catherine balance traditional duties with modern parenting and a more active role in social causes, the demands on their staff have likely increased. They're not just maintaining a royal household, they're raising young children, managing charitable foundations, and representing the monarchy to a new generation. The secret that Sadie's story exposes isn't that Prince William is a terrible employer, but rather that the institution of royal service itself may be fundamentally at odds with modern expectations of work-life balance. No amount of personal kindness can offset a system designed to put the needs of one family above all others, the wider impact. When Sadie Rice walked away from her royal position at 35, she did more than just change jobs. She challenged a centuries-old system that relied on the unquestioning loyalty and sacrifice of those who served royalty. Her decision to finally break her silence rippled through royal households across Britain. Following the news of her departure, palace sources revealed that other royal staff began asking similar questions about their own positions. Were the prestige and proximity to history worth the personal cost? Could boundaries be established that allowed for both excellent service and personal fulfillment? Was it possible to serve royalty without surrendering one's own life in the process? These questions weren't just theoretical. They reflected a generational shift in attitudes toward work and life. Younger staff members entering royal service brought with them modern expectations about employment rights, work-life balance, and personal boundaries. They admired tradition but questioned practices that seemed rooted more in hierarchy than necessity. This shift presented a challenge for the royal family. Their daily lives depend on dedicated staff willing to go above and beyond normal employment expectations. Yet attracting and retaining quality personnel requires acknowledging changing workforce attitudes. It's a delicate balance, maintaining the standards and traditions that define royal service while adapting to contemporary employment practices. Prince William and Duchess Catherine, as younger royals with children of their own, arguably understood this tension better than most. They represent a bridge between traditional royal values and modern sensibilities. Yet Sadie's departure suggests that even they struggled to create working conditions that respected staff needs while meeting their own requirements. Though brief, the media coverage of Sadie's resignation opened a rare window into the typically private world of royal employment. For the public, it provided a reminder that behind the ceremony and splendor of royal life are ordinary people doing extraordinary work, often at considerable personal cost. Life after service. At 35, Sadie Rice found herself at a crossroads that few could experience, leaving behind a world of palaces and princes to return to ordinary life. What happens when you step away from service to one of the most famous families in the world? For Sadie, the transition came with both challenges and unexpected freedoms. After years of rigid schedules dictated by royal needs, she suddenly faced days that were hers to shape. After maintaining strict confidentiality about every aspect of her work, she could speak more openly about her daily life. After subordinating her needs to those of the Cambridge family, she could finally prioritize herself. Initial reports suggested that Sadie took time to relax after leaving her position, focusing on reconnecting with family and friends who had taken a back seat during her royal employment. The experience and references gained from working in such prestigious households meant she wasn't short of employment opportunities, but she chose to be deliberate about her next steps. While Sadie maintained appropriate discretion about specific details of the Cambridge household, her decision to break her silence about the general working conditions sent an important message. By speaking through friends to trusted sources, she highlighted the unsustainable expectations placed on royal staff without betraying the family's privacy. Sadie's resignation was never about disliking the Duke and Duchess, clarified one source close to the former Maid. It was about reclaiming the right to have a life beyond her job. This distinction is crucial. Her story isn't one of revenge or scandal, but of someone making a difficult choice in favor of personal well-being. The royal household eventually filled Sadie's position, as institutions always do when individuals leave. Life at Anmer Hall and Kensington Palace continued. Routines were adjusted, and new staff learned the royal service. But something had changed. A small but significant shift in understanding about the human cost of maintaining royal life. For Prince William and Duchess Catherine, losing a valued staff member like Sadie offered an opportunity for reflection. While palace sources never confirmed any changes to staff policies after her departure, subsequent years have seen fewer reports of high turnover among Cambridge household staff, perhaps indicating lessons learned and adjustments made. Sadie's story reminds us that even in the most gilded cages, people deserve lives of their own. At 35, she chose herself, not out of disloyalty to the royal family she served, but out of loyalty to her own well-being and future. In doing so, she reminded us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from something that looks perfect from the outside, but isn't serving us on the inside. What do you think about Sadie's decision to leave royal service? Was she right to prioritize her well-being? What would you do if your dream job slowly took over your entire life? Share your thoughts in the comments below and like this video if you find it interesting.